Hey, it's Mr. Jorgens here. Today we're going to be talking about section 2.3, linear inequalities. This is going to be part 2 of what we've been working on. And we're going to be doing one-step inequalities where we're undoing one step by either multiplication or division. More specifically today, that one step is going to be undoing multiplication or division by a negative number. So the main difference between what we did yesterday and what we're going to do today is that we have an extra rule, and the rule is that when multiplying or dividing both sides of an inequality by a negative number, we're going to have to flip the sign. And the reason for that is we can find using numbers. So let's say we take two numbers, like -6 and 8. Now, I know that -6 is less than 8, so I'm going to put a less than sign in between. Remember, the alligator is going to eat the bigger one, so it's going to eat the 8. So -6 is less than 8. Now let's say I go ahead and multiply both sides by a negative number. I'm going to pick kind of an easy negative number, -2. So if I go ahead and multiply both sides by a negative number, -2, now the numbers that I'd be left with are -2 times -6 is +12, and 8 times -2 is a -16. And when I go to think about what sign, the alligator now should be eating the 12, right? Because 12 is bigger than -16. Positives are always bigger than negative. So if you notice, that sign flipped when I multiplied both sides by a negative number. And that same thing is going to hold when I do it with algebra. Similarly, if I go and divide, let's say I take the same numbers. I'll take -6 and +8 again. I know that -6 is less than +8. If I go ahead and divide both sides by a negative, let's pick -2 again just because that's an easy number to work with. -6 divided by -2 is going to make a +3 because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 8 divided by 2 makes 4. So 8 divided by -2 is -4. And I know that positives are always larger than negatives, so 3 is greater than -4. My alligator is going to eat the 3. But now it's all messed up again, right? I started out less than, but now I'm going to flip my sign. It becomes greater than. So that kind of work with numbers there is kind of proof of our rule that when multiplying or dividing both sides of an inequality by a negative number, we're going to have to flip the sign. That's our new rule for today. The rest of the problems are going to go similarly. I'm going to undo multiplication with division and division with multiplication, just like I did in 2.3 part 1. But the extra rule I'm going to have to remember is that if I multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, we're going to have to flip the sign. Let's take a look at a first example here. Example 1, 2 is less than x divided by -3. Now before I'm going to go about solving this problem, I have to figure out how I'm going to undo that -3. Am I going to undo it by addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? Go ahead and select your operation from the answers. All right, hopefully you picked multiplication, right? We're going to undo division by multiplying. So I can undo a divide by -3 by multiplying both sides by a -3. Now, because that number is negative, I know my new rule for today is if I multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, I have to flip my sign. So my less than is going to become a greater than. When I do that on the left, I get -3 times 2 makes -6. On the right, x divided by -3 times -3, that divide -3 and times -3 cancels for just x. And I get -6 is greater than x. Now, hopefully you're realizing that another way of writing -6 greater than x is to say x less than -6, right? And I usually like to read these left to right when I go about setting up my graph. So if I set up my graph here, x is less than -6. A smaller number is -7 and -8. Bigger numbers -5 and -4. Again, there's no or equal to. It's just strictly less than. So it's going to be an open circle. And I want smaller numbers like -7 and -8, so I'm going to draw my arrow to the left. My answer here, x less than -6, and the solution set is shown. Answers that are going to work for that inequality are answers like -7 and -8. All right, our next example here is -7x is less than or equal to -35. Again, I have to think of how is that -7 and x stuck together? Is it stuck by adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing? So I want to know this right here. What's the operation? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Select your option in the answers. All right, hopefully you realized it was multiply, right? I have an invisible multiplication dot between 7 and x there. So I'm going to undo my invisible multiplication by -7 by dividing both sides by -7. Now, because I'm dividing both sides by a negative number, I'm going to have to flip the sign. So I flip it from a less than or equal to a greater than or equal to there because it was a negative number. Multiply -7 and divide -7 makes 1, so I get x is greater than or equal to negative divided by negative is a positive. 35 divided by 7 is 5, so x greater than or equal to 5. When I go to draw my graph, x greater than or equal to x greater than or equal to 5, is that going to be an open circle or a closed circle? So open circle or closed circle. Select your option in the answers. Good. Hopefully you realize that at 5 I'm going to have a closed circle since it's or equal to. Some bigger numbers like 6 and 7, some smaller numbers like 4 and 3. I'm going greater than 5, so I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. We're going to finish off section 2.3 with two try these problems. The first one is x divided by -4 is less than 7. Go ahead and solve that one out and then select the answer option. All right, so taking a look at that one, I'm going to undo a divide -4 by multiply -4 onto both sides. And when I do that, I'm going to end up with 7 times -4 makes -28 on the right and just x on the left. And my graph should look something like that, an open circle with my arrow toward the bigger numbers to the right. Go ahead and try one last problem here. We're going to try -9x is greater than 63. So that's a second try these for you. Go ahead and enter your answer when you're ready. All right, so again, looking at this one, I'm going to undo multiply -9 by divide -9, which will give me x on the left. 63 divided by -9 is -7 on the right. Again, I got to flip that sign. Since I multiplied or divided, in this case divided by -9 to both sides, I'm going to flip the sign to a less than. And when I go to draw my graph, -7 in the middle, it's an open circle since it's not or equal to. And I want the smaller numbers. So smaller numbers are like -8 and -9. So I'm going to draw my arrow to the left there on that one. All right, that should be good to go on section 2.3. We're ready to kind of move on to section 2.4 next week now. Hope you guys had a good day.